facing growing pressure to quit in the wake of the Partygate scandal. 6 Tory MPs have now publicly called for his resignation. OK, we'll get to that in about a minute. But first, Ranveer is going to look at all of the alleged number 10 events so far.
It's quite a list, isn't it? Shall we begin? The 15th of May 2020 saw the first reported Downing Street party. Boris Carey and 17 members of staff were pictured enjoying wine and cheese. Just 5 days later, around 100 members of Number 10 staff were invited to socially distanced drinks by the Prime Minister's aide, Martin Reynolds, although we think only 40 turned up. Fast forward to the 13th of November, and Carrie Johnson allegedly had a flat party. She denies that. On the 14th of December, a party organised by Sean Bailey's London Mayoral campaign was held at Conservative Party HQ. And then a day later, at Downing Street, Boris Johnson is photographed taking part in a Christmas quiz. Then, on the 18th of December, around 50 people reportedly attended a Number 10 Christmas party, with footage emerging of the Prime Minister's then Press Secretary laughing and joking about that breach. That joke ended in tears and a resignation for Allegra Stratton, of course. And in 2021, the night before Prince Philip's funeral, Number 10 reportedly hosted 2 parties with staff drinking into the early hours and some DJing on a photocopier. So Sue Gray has a big job on her hands, does she not? She certainly does. Joining us now, former Conservative Cabinet member Michael Portillo, Conservative Councillor Cllr Pearsall, and former head of the Civil Service, Lord Bob Kerslake. Very good morning to all of you.
Morning. Good morning. Morning.
Lord Kerslake, is Sue Gray the right person to be investigating, considering that Boris Johnson is effectively her boss?
I've got huge admiration for Sue Gray. She's formidable, fearless and forensic. The problem here, though, is that the investigation she's doing is normally commissioned by the Prime Minister for the Prime Minister. It reports to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister decides what action is going to be taken. What we've found with this investigation is midway through the investigation, the Prime Minister himself becomes front and centre of that investigation. And I think that creates quite a problem for Sue Gray and indeed for this kind of investigation. Had we known that at the start, I think many of people, including me, would have said this required someone independent from government and indeed from the civil service to oversee it, a retired judge or someone like that. I don't see how she can say things that essentially force the hand of the Prime Minister. It's going to be very hard for her to do that. After all, the role of the civil service is to serve the government of the day. So I'm in no way critical of Sue Gray, who is terrific, but I'm afraid we've ended up with an investigation commissioned by the person who is the main subject of that investigation. And that, I think, is a problem.
So, Michael Portillo, if this report comes out and it lacks punch and it appears to the public that it's not doing its job and it's sort of letting the Prime Minister off the hook, or it's allowing him to let himself off the hook, there will be uproar. We've already seen the reaction to Partygate. There will be uproar.
That's right. I mean, I think it's very difficult for the Prime Minister to win on this one, because if it reveals any more than we know already, that will be a great problem for him. And if it appears to be a soft slap, that will be a problem because it will absolutely lack credibility. I think what Bob just said about this is absolutely right, but I think also probably inevitable, because in a democratic system, you cannot put a civil servant above the Prime Minister. Prime Minister is the top elected, democratically elected person. Bob says, get a judge. If you had a judge, it would take a judge months to come to these conclusions. And obviously, we need this pretty fast. But in a way, Richard, I think you make quite an interesting point that lots of Conservative members of Parliament are using Sue Gray now as a way of withholding their opinion for a few more days. But it's most unlikely that Sue Gray is going to tell us anything that we don't already know. Last Wednesday in the House of Commons, the Prime Minister told us that he attended a party. Yep. He attempted his apology. So we know perfectly well that he was involved in breaking lockdown rules. I'm not quite sure what else we're going to find out, really.
Michael, if only there was an organisation which had qualified members of staff which could investigate if laws were broken. Oh, well, hang on a moment. We do have one, and it's the Metropolitan Police. But they keep insisting they're not going to investigate. Is that sustainable?
I'm not an expert on policing. I would have thought it was probably not sustainable. I mean, it may well be that the Prime Minister has a case for saying that he was in his own residence and his own garden, but he might be an accessory to other people who were partying in the garden for whom it was simply a public space. It wasn't their home. So prima facie, there is a case for an investigation, and I would have thought it would be difficult at some point. The police, like Tory MPs, are using Sue Gray as a way of postponing coming to a position.
Everyone's hiding behind her, aren't they? Basically?
Yes. Yeah. Well, you remember Boris hid behind Sue Gray for a day or two. He said, oh, I can't say anything about this at all until Sue Gray is...
And now they're all doing it.
He was forced out of that particular borough and he was forced to apologise.
Just before we come to Cllr here, as a Conservative councillor, we'll talk to you in a minute about your feelings on this, which are very strong and very potent. Was it like this when you were in Cabinet? Was it party at number 10?
I thought...
Don't say you don't remember.
No, to be honest, I thought partying was a very important part of what I did. So whenever my staff had done a good job, I would come in with a bottle of champagne and I would say at the end of the day, well done, guys, fantastic, and I would open a bottle of champagne. So, yes, I would say, I would actually regard it as a good part of management. But, of course, I wasn't operating in a pandemic, and we were not drunk on the job or anything like that. But at the end of the day, I would say, well done, and do that. So, you know, I rather pride myself on the fact that there was a bottle of champagne, a glass of champagne, for everyone who'd done a good job at the end of the day.
Straight answer.
So, Cllr, Pearsall, there is a culture of rewarding staff who have worked hard with alcohol, as Michael has just explained. And these staff, you know, Boris Johnson said one of the justifications for the event in the garden on the 20th of May was that they'd been working hard and he wanted to go out and thank them. Is that all right?
Well, no, of course it's not all right. In the middle of a pandemic, there were lots of people working extremely hard. The emergency services, NHS workers, people that were homeschooling their own children. I'm sure that they would love to have had a party at the end of every day, but they didn't because the rules forbid it. So that as an excuse, I think, is pretty poor. And as for the drinking culture, well, certainly I spent time at the Home Office for just coming up to 18 months. And it wasn't part of our life. So I'm not sure if this is something that's crept in recently.
Do you find it awkward saying that as a Conservative Party member? You know, your Prime Minister is hugely successful and popular character, you know, with an incredible win back in December 2019.
And I think that's the really difficult thing, because we came out of the 2019 election with a majority and we reached out to parts of the country that we'd never normally succeed in. However, that's now being squandered away because telling the truth is not coming to the fore. So it's really, really disappointing in the party that I've supported for such a long time and worked very hard
You choose your words carefully, though. Telling the truth is not coming to the fore. Are you saying he's a liar? Are you saying that your Conservative Prime Minister is a liar?
Would you like me to hide behind the Sue Gray inquiry? Because I think that's what everybody's doing.
Well, can you answer that question? Are you saying that he's a liar?
I'm not going to call anybody a liar until we have actually seen the facts. And I appreciate that that's going to look like I'm hiding behind it, but I do think it's important.
OK, then are you worried about the May elections?
Yes, I am extremely worried about the May elections.
If Boris Johnson was your MP, would you vote for him?
I would vote for a Conservative member.
What if it was Boris?
Well, absolutely, because I support the Conservative Party. And I think that's the real difficulty that people are going to have. They may well support their own local MP, they may be fed up with the Conservative Party, but they aren't going to go anywhere else. And I think there's some really difficult choices, but local government is different. And you will see a lot of protest votes coming out, as we've seen before.
And what do you think, with those local elections taking place in May, if people do protest against the Conservative Party and they pay the price, what should Boris Johnson do then if he hasn't already fallen on his sword beforehand?
Well, I think that is the time he needs to fall upon his sword. And I think that's the time that Conservative members will also make their minds up, the ones who haven't spoken out. That will be the turning point.
And in a sentence, Michael, should he go?
I don't have a position. I'm simply a commentator. I think what really matters is whether Tory MPs calculate that he could recover his popularity. That is what they're trying to work out right now.